at San Diego Airport, the simulated San Diego Airport, but you know what? We need to also make this a real-time flight too. I always forget to do this. So come on over here and we're going to do real time and real weather. There we go. Okay, it's a little bit lighter out there. That looks good. Hello, I'm Dave. I do the, okay, and then it got darker there. I guess the weather kicked in. Hi, I'm Dave. I do the Spy Flight over on Twitch, and this is sort of a new thing. I'm starting to expand a little bit here on YouTube, and I hope that this is something that maybe you like to do. These are just going to be clean flights that we're going to do in some of the most exciting new airplanes that are coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I would imagine that there's going to be a couple over on X-Plane too. But thank you for joining me. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. This is going to be a simple flight from San Diego to San Francisco. My add-ons that I'm using here are FlightAware, Navigraph charts and data, SimToolkit Pro along with SimBrief, and I also use metartaf.com for a little bit of weather on these flights. This is a complex airplane. The PMDG 737 has a lot of little rabbit holes that you can jump down, and we're going to jump through a few of them. But the focus today is going to be basic operations and on-time operations. We're simulating airlines here, and on-time is supposed to be a thing from what I understand. One thing about the videos that I do here on YouTube and over on Twitch too, I've been flying flight simulators since the early days of the Sublogic flight simulator. I also have a private pilot's license, so small Cessnas, but this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. What this is what I've discovered about the airplane and the sim, and this is what works for me. And maybe hopefully this is going to help work for you too. My suggestion is stop this video, load up your sim, and fly along with me. The cool part about what we do here on YouTube is you can stop and start the video to catch up. You can also rewind the video if you missed something that I did. That way you can get your workflow in these complex airplanes all nicely set up. One of the things I mentioned is on-time departures. This is a little bit of back timing that you need to do. So our departure time is 6:15 a.m. in San Diego. So this is the back timing that I did as far as boarding and when you do the planning and when you hit the power on button and all those things. Our flight plan today takes us off of San Diego runway 27 to the Padres 2 departure. We're coming in on Surfer 4 to 28 right. This is a standard flight just right up the west coast. We're just going to do it at sunrise. It's about 397 miles. We should be flying for about an hour and 7 minutes. Out to the airplane we go. One quick apology for voice quality and stuff. The pollen is going on out there, so there are sniffles and things. So here we all are. I've got the flight plan all set up and ready to go. I also have my flight notes, and my flight notes, you should look in the description below. You're going to see this exact same file. I've just cut and pasted it, so you can cut and paste this into Notepad and adapt this. This is how it is that I keep track of flight notes, because boy, for a while there, I just was killing all sorts of trees with all the paper that I was going through. So let's see. Let's hop into the airplane right now. And I think I have to click this, and there we go. So the airplane is cold and dark at the moment, and what we need to do is the first thing is you can see that this is on. If this is not on, I think what you do is hold the menu button down, and if you hold the menu button down, this will pop this on so you have control of your airplane. One of the things that PMDG is working on, you might have noticed, is over here there's no EFB. PMDG is working on a real nice EFB for control, and I think that's going to be nice. So let's first things first, we're going to go over to ground services, and ground power is plugged in, but what we need to do is we need to request a jetway. Let's see if we can actually get the jetway to come over here. Yeah, we got to get the jetway because, the pilots have to get aboard. One of the things that I've already done is done what I call the pilot's briefing, the pilot's lounge stuff. That means I've already gone and taken a look at the flight plan. I've already taken a look at got the stack of charts, and so now we've got our jetway. So let's go back in here, and so now that the jetway is in place, we'll return, and we're going to go to the doors, and we're going to open up the left front door. So the left front door is now open, and you can move around this airplane. So the cabin, you can move through the airplane here. Let's see. I don't know if you can actually go through the door or not. Yeah, you actually have to start off in the cabin, and then you can start moving around the cabin. And there are a few things that you can do to be able to move around the cabin a little bit easier. Hopefully they make it easier to do that. You can see our doors open and all that. They also ought to make it so that we can open the door to the flight deck. Time to start doing that. Okay, so our door's open. Now, here's one of those rabbit holes that we're not going to really jump down. You can go into the ground services menu and you can load fuel and have the passengers trickle onto the airplane the way passengers do. We're just going to go ahead and add the fuel like we normally do here. So our fuel for today's flight is 11,516. So 11,516 pounds. That's all you do. I'm doing the my Boeings. I generally do my Boeings in pounds, and I do Airbuses in kgs. All right, so we got that. Now, how about let's do payload? The payload is our zero fuel weight, which is 103,298. This is one of those numbers that you enter as a little decimal point here. So take the first three numbers. So in my case, it's 103. 103, and then do the decimal point, and then the fourth number, and that's going to be a 2. Okay, and put that in for zero fuel weight. We're done. Airplane is loaded. That's all, not that kind of loaded. The airplane is now loaded. You don't need to go and do anything else. If you want some more immersion, you can, and that is a rabbit hole for another day. So as far as the rest of the world is concerned, passengers are making their way down. Well, they're not quite making their way down. Let's go ahead and start turning power on the airplane because we got to see what time it is. Boy, is it dark. Let's get a little bit of power, a little bit of light going on. And let's kind of zoom up here. And here's the main switch, so power. We've also got ground power available right now, so I'm going to go and just pop that in at the moment. And then while we're up here doing this sort of stuff, let's go ahead, and there's the panel lights up here. We're going to backlight that. If it's too dark for you, you can look up here and go way up here, and here's the dome light. So you can turn on the dome light. I think they have the dome light up there so that when pilots are coming aboard, it's easy for them to reach. So that's the dome light. So we've got our dome light on, and now we can see. And it is now 12:43 Zulu time. Well, we need to start doing passenger boarding here pretty quickly. We need to start passenger boarding by 5:45. I'm not going to actually board the passengers on this one, but we'll go ahead and start. I'm going to learn passenger boarding for the next video. Let's come on over here, and we're going to come in, and this thing over here. So let's go ahead. This is the IRS system. And we're going to go and do left IRS to nav, right IRS to nav. And if you want to make sure that it's doing its thing, come on over here and dial this over to heading STS status. And you'll have to turn up the brightness. And if you start at an 8 or a 7, and then as you start putting data into the computer, that number starts going down, and that's the alignment process. And now things are going along pretty good. So we're going to go, and now we're going to click the FMC. Oh, look at that. The computers are turning on. So let's check our nav data, May through June 16th. We've got our latest nav data. Let's do the position in net. And there are several ways to do this. We can go to the next page, and we don't have any GPS positions yet. Eventually you will get those. Or you could put in the airport. We are at KSAN, San Diego. I am at gate 41. So let's put in, see if it knows gate 41. It knows gate 41. And so this is the latitude and longitude. Or you can be patient and eventually a GPS position will show up. Let's just go ahead and do our gate position. And we're going to put that in there. And that's it. So now we're good to go there. And now we can start doing our route. We are at KSAN, San Diego. We are going to KSFO, San Francisco. KSFO. There we go. We are flying as United Airlines, Flight 441, and that goes up there. Runway for departure, we know it's going to be 27, so we can pop in runway 27. And the airplane is starting to come to life now, and the current time is 12:45. So in the terminal, we've got the They're starting to make the announcements, and first-class passengers are coming aboard right now. So that's getting taken care of. I just cleared off the caution there. I'll tend to turn off the cautions. And you know what I've forgotten to do? This is an inconvenient part about being in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Right now my controls are set to Airbus mode. So we've got to go out here and we got to do control options, and we got to set some of my stuff up for Boeing. So this is something that Microsoft and Asobo really needs to fix here, because over on the other sim, this is a no-brainer. You don't have to do this stuff. But what I need to do is come over here and I need to change my throttles to Boeing. That says 247. We don't want the 247. There's BAE 146, the old Spitfire, a helicopter, TCA engine 1 and 2. DC6, TCA 1 and 2 profile, PMDG 737, there you go. Now that's good. I'm going to apply and save it. Now let's see. I don't remember if I set up my I've got actually 2 sets of these things. Let's see, do I have a PMDG 737 over here? I may not. There's an NX, there's an Otter, 3 and 4 profile, 247, BAE. I don't actually have one, I don't think, for this one. So 3 and 4 fly-by-wire is what I'm going to leave that on. I don't really use much of that. And then I don't need to do anything over here. I don't think I've got anything on this one for the stick. So there's the Phoenix, there's the default, there's the A320 Pilot, there's the Phoenix. So I don't really have anything to do on that one. We'll apply and save, and now that should be good. If you don't do that, sometimes the different profiles have to be changed, and Microsoft and Asobo really needs to set that up for us. So passengers are slowly coming aboard here, and we've got some nice lights in here, very nice mood lighting, and the cabin's passable. You get some nice wing views out of this. Okay, so with this going on, let's go down here, and you can do a flight plan request if you want to download your flight plan. I generally don't bother with that too much, simply because most of the flight plans that you fly in this airplane are not that intense. Okay, so we're turning up the panel brightness. Let's also go over here, and we're turning up the brightness there. So that looks good. Make sure we can see these things. We'll come down here, and we've got a panel brightness down here too. This is the backlighting. Over on the Airbus, they call it the integrated lighting. I think it makes it's so much easier to be able to see the buttons a little bit. Okay, so this is good. Let's go over here, and usually at this point, I will start with the departure and the arrival. And our departure, we know, is going to be runway 27. We're doing the Padres departure, so Padres 2. And we are going to be coming out at IK. So IK transition, and that's good. That's all we need. So those have all been selected. And now we can go over to the route, and we're going to go to the next page. And so there's the IK. After IK, we're doing Risen, R-I-Z-I-N. And these are all direct twos, R-I-Z-I-N. Okay, now if we had an airway, we'd put it over here. In this case, it's just to Risen. After Risen, we're going to Splint, S-P-L-N-T, S-P-L-N-T. I am not spelling these out just for you to hear me say that. I actually say that if I'm not talking on a video. And the reason is there's no spell check here. So if I spell it out and say it out loud, that way I just know I'm putting the right one in. After Splint, it's Stoked, S-T-O-K-D, S-T-O-K-D, Stoked. And after Stoked, it's Surfer, S-E-R-F-R, S-E-R-F-R. And that's it. There's your flight plan. It's done. So activate and execute. Now we're going to go back over here to the departure and arrival page and San Francisco arrivals. We know that we're going to do the ILS to 28 right. So there's the ILS to 28 right. We know that we are doing the surfer arrival. So we're doing surfer 4. There's no transition. And I know that we're going to do the eddy transition into the runway. So all of that's good. Execute that. Now we can come down to legs. And there is the departure. It's also got the constraints in pretty good. And there's our flight plan. There's no discontinuities. It takes us right into the runway. One of the things that I like to suggest is if you ever get the chance, I really suggest that you do familiar routes, especially with these complex airplanes as you're getting used to the airplane and learning how it works. So one of the things is, as I mentioned, I already got my stack of charts here. So I already know we're at gate 41 here. I already know where we are here in San Diego. This is a route I've done before, and there's runway 27. By the way, I also suggest that you use the moving map, especially for taxi. And then I also know the Padres departure as we come out on IK. The Surfer 4, we've done this, I've lost count. But I know that Surfer 4 puts us out here at a waypoint called Eddy, and then Eddy takes us right in to the ILS for our runway 28 right. I know that 28 right, we've got a couple of high speeds here. And I also know the layout of the airport, and I know that we're going to actually park over here. So knowing where it is that you are and knowing your airfield, I think is something that really helps you out, especially as you're trying to learn a complex airplane like this one. Okay, all of this is looking good. Back over to route. This is great. Let's do the performance initialization. Now, zero fuel weight is this is our next one. And we take this number right off the flight plan, just like what we plugged in over here on the simulator control to load the airplane. So it's 103.2. 103.2. And there's our zero fuel weight. What's the reserves? Okay, this one does the reserves. So if you look here on fuel, and I'm using the United Airlines 2018 format, there's 3 lines here, FAR, SMF, and 15 minutes. So those 3 fuel numbers, the 1,963, you add these 3 numbers up, that's your reserve, and it does the math for you, and that's called remaining fuel on this one. This is how much we should have when we get to San Diego. So this is our remaining fuel. And this is another one of those numbers where you put a decimal point in. In this case, it's going to be 5.6. So that's our reserves. So 5.6. And that's our reserves. Cost index, you get that off of the flight plan. Even if you don't use this, look for a number with the letters by a number by CI. And it says 35. So there's our cost index, 35. Okay, that looks good. Cruise altitude, that's off your flight plan. Today we're going to flight level 380. So 380, we're flying high today. Now at this point in time, you can stop. If you want to jump down one last little rabbit hole here, it's going to see where it says cruise winds. Yeah, this is also going to tell you unable 280 knots. It does that to me all the time. I probably screwed something up. I don't know what, but I'm not going to worry about it. Cruise winds, what do we do here? So for cruise winds, I usually go, and I forget who told me to do this, go to your top of climb in the flight plan and just take the winds from there. 266 at 38. So let's go 266 at 38. I think that is sort of putting a Band-Aid on something right now until I learn more. I think the only other thing is there's a blank here. Yes, I know, you can't do 280 knots at gnarly. Shut up. This is, I believe, your planned fuel. I'm not sure about this one yet, but all of this is good. Let's execute that. Next one is limitations. This is how you limit the power. Right now, all I'm doing is instead of putting in a D rate on this one, I'm just taking the takeoff D rate -1 and climb D rate -1. That gets me going for now. We'll learn more about D rates as time goes by. That's another rabbit hole to jump down later. Takeoff time. So flaps, generally, I believe on this airplane, if you got a good long runway, it's flaps 1 for takeoff. For CG, I'm not sure exactly where to get this right now, but if you click it, it'll give it to you. So there is our center of gravity. And then if you have QRH set to on, you can turn it off if you want and do your own numbers. This is the PMDG airplane giving you takeoff speeds. And now all of that is in there. So that's done. Okay, so passengers are slowly trickling aboard. We are going to, it is now 12:56 Zulu. We are closing the doors at 6:05 or 13:05 for a departure at 6:15 a.m. local time. So we can go ahead and let's start setting up the upper panel here. We're going to go and do the yaw dampers. I usually start on this side, yaw dampers going on. We're also going to turn on the aft left side fuel pump. So we're going to do that one. And as we're coming over here, I'm going to go and do the APU. That's a down arrow. That's kind of hard to get to. I find it's easier for me to get to the down arrow with my main cockpit view and then come over there. Now I can get it. And you just hold it down until it resets itself. Okay, so all of this is good. Nothing really to worry about up here. We've got our lights set up, equipment cooling. We don't have to worry about that. This is doesn't have no smoking on these. It just has a chime now. So that's how you ring the bell. But we could go ahead and let's get the passengers in their seats. So this is one of those things where you can use the mouse wheel. My mouse wheel is also set to zoom in and out, and if you don't hold it steady, it moves around on you and it becomes annoying. Okay, looking up here, we can come and turn on the windshield heaters. And we're going to leave all the rest of this off. Okay, hydraulics. So in the old FlyJ Sim 727-200, I was reading that you need to turn on electric hydraulic system number 2. But you leave number 1 off until after pushback, because that can somehow damage the nose gear or something. Okay, everything else is looking good here. APU is coming up. Let's go ahead and turn on the APU bleed. We have the isolation switches open, and we can also turn the packs to auto. So those are looking pretty good. Final cruise is flight level 380, so dial in 38,000 feet. For your cruise altitude. So we're going to be flying high there, 38,000, and the landing altitude, I believe, San Francisco is like 12. It's very small. 13. Really, I was off by 1. 13. So what can we set up here? We can set up 50 feet or no feet. I'm going to go with no feet, and there we go. The position lights are already on. If we wanted to, we could turn on the logo light. If we wanted to show the logo here a bit, but we don't need to. So that's pretty good there. And a nice sunrise. How about that? Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's real world weather, real world time. So it's a tad bit foggy there. Okay, so everything's set and good to go here. Now we can come here. For the departure, on the Surfer departure, I believe there is, no, not Surfer, Padres departure. So the Padres departure transition is 18,000 feet. Some of the departures give you a top altitude. Look at that. It says so right there, 15,000 feet. So our initial clearance is 15,000 feet. So we'll dial that in. 150. There we go. That's an important thing, because generally, if you get your clearance on VATSIM now, all they're saying is climb via the SID. That means they expect you to know what your top altitude is and stop there. Okay, so that's good. What about a runway heading? So we can come over here, and our departure heading is 275 degrees. So we're going to dial in 275 degrees. And that's almost there. So there's 2, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. How about the initial speed? I've generally learned on this airplane you take your V2 and add 10. So 128, 138 is the speed I want. 138 to get us going. Now over on some other airplanes, older airplanes, I usually add about 20. I add a little bit more, but I think that's what I've read there. The altimeter setting. Let's see, we are probably about ready to get a new METAR. So let's go over here and do METAR TAF. This is linked in the description below, KSAN, San Diego. If you're just getting started with this flight simulator stuff, I've got to tell you this is an absolutely great resource for, first of all, finding out what the latest, what your METAR weather is, what the weather is at the airport. So I'm going to copy that, and I usually keep that over here in my flight notes. So there you go. But it's a great way to be able to visualize what's going to happen. So we got overcast clouds to 1,000 feet. We've got no wind, 9 miles visibility. The ceiling is right there. It is IFR right now. And it's runway 27 is just fine. So this is a great resource for trying to visualize, you know, if it was windy, it's going to show you which way the wind is coming at you from in relation to the runway. So it knows, you can see it's going to blow me off to the right, and that helps you understand that a little bit better, especially as you're getting going. Altimeter is 2988. It's a small number down here. So go over here to the barrow and 2988. There we go. And let's see. I think this is an airplane that I've got all of my altimeters are linked together. That is one level of immersion that I'm very, very content to let happen. Now there's some airplanes that it's not so easy to link them together. That's just the way I do that. Okay, we are not on VATSIM, but I always like to set up a squawk code because I always forget to set up a squawk code on VATSIM. So we're going to go to 2000. Now on this airplane, you start off by squawking transponder, and that puts you in mode Charlie. And then when you get to the runway to take off, then you can start squawking Tara, T-A-R-A. Okay, so with that in there, we can also set 122.8. Again, that would be if we were on VATSIM, and that's how we would announce our intentions. And if you're new and you're worried about talking on VATSIM and stuff like that, the best way to go and be ready for talking on VATSIM is to practice. You know, like an actor practices their lines before they shoot their big scene in a movie, you ought to practice your lines too. It is now 13:03 Zulu. If you take a look at all the back timing stuff that I did here, 13, so we need to be closing the doors at 13:05 Zulu or 6:05 local time. So by now the passengers should be in their seats and we should be ready to go. So we're going to close the doors 2 minutes early. So now I have this over here. I'm going to go to FS Actions, and we're going to go to Doors, and I'm going to close. There's closing the door. While the doors are closing, I'm going to come over here. The APU is up and running. Let's kick in the APU generators, and we can come over here and disconnect ground power. So ground power is now disconnected. And we can come back over here, and we're going to return, and we can go to ground services, and I'm going to release ground power. Ground power is now released. Chocks are still in place. Let's see if the jetway has pulled itself back. Yeah, this the jetway's pulled itself back when you release ground power and when you close the door. So jetway is now back. There goes our ground power cart, and we're all ready to go. Since the latest sim update, there have been some problems with toolbar pushback. So basically I pulled that out. A lot of the airplanes that we have these days have their own pushback trucks anyway, so I'm trying to learn how to use those. So we've cleared moorings, ground services are clear. We're going to go to the pushback truck. And at this point, you can say how far to go to the taxi line. 262 feet is what is already in there. I'm going to just leave that. You could also set a turn if you want. And now by hitting select tug, now all of a sudden we have a tug connected. So a tug's ready to go. This is really going to be helpful to you if you are doing across the pond and you have to be ready to go at the time they say, push back. You have to be ready to go. I think it's 5 or 10 minutes before your slot. And you don't, and there isn't time, for over on X-plane for better pushback to get itself situated. So you need to have your tug connected. Okay, so everything is looking pretty good here. Now then, these airplanes are getting more and more complex. So I've started using real-world checklists. You can find them by just doing a Google search for, like in this case, Boeing 737 PDF checklist. And that's how I found this. I suggest printing them off, putting them in a little plastic sleeve, and using them like the pilots would use these. And so let's go ahead and do pre-flight. And oxygen. We have to do the oxygen test. There's the oxygen test. Okay, nav instruments are set to normal. The yaw damper's on. Emergency exit lights, I forgot those. Armed and guarded. Window heat is on. Pressurization selector is set to auto. Flight instruments. We have heading and altitude set. GPS is set to nav, parking brake is on, and engine start levers are cut off. And so pre-flight is done. And this is a good time for the pilots to have a drink of their coffee if they're dealing with pollen issues. Much better. This airplane is so beautifully modeled. If you come outside the airplane and you look, you decide to get like the drone camera and zoom in, the modeling on this and some of the other airplanes is absolutely becomes stunning at just how detailed these airplanes are these days. There's a pretty good view. I did notice that the San Diego gates are misnumbered as they so often are in a lot of the default scenery. So one of the things I suggest is if you can find some corrected gates, that's going to help you out, especially when you start flying on VATSIM. Here's a new cool thing to do. So most of you know that I usually fly with as United Airlines Flight 441. That was my old SATCO login ID. But real airline pilots, guess what? They have flight numbers to remember, and they're always changing. Guess what? They modeled this. This is like one of the first airplanes that I have seen this little thing modeled there to remind you of what your flight number is. I think that that's really cool. So, I can start flying. Technically, we are shadowing a real United Airlines flight that I found over on Similware, and I just didn't set it up in time. Let's see if I can find that one. Where is that flight number? So 757 Simbrief, San Diego. There it is. So I believe, yeah, this is the flight we're shadowing. So I should have gone United Flight 2235. Okay, so we're going to need another number. PMDG, we need another number on there. So 2235 is our flight. It's expected to depart in 6 minutes. It's from the gate. And so this is the flight that we're actually shadowing. And I do suggest, for real-world flight operations, find a real-world flight. Do the timing and see if you can push out. And now is the time, so I say it's time to push. So before start checklist, flight deck door is closed and locked. Fuel is verified 11.5, and 11.5 is according to the flight plan. Passenger signs are on. The windows are locked. The mode control panel is set to V2, heading and altitude. Our takeoff speeds are in the FMC. The CDU pre-flight is done. Rudder and aileron trim is set. Taxi and takeoff briefing has sort of been done. Let's do anti-collision lights on. And guess what? We're ready to push and start. So come on down here. And let's go and do start the push. So we'll start the push. I may not have clicked it well.
Cockpit to ground.
Ah, there we go.
Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start straight back. Roger that. Ready for push straight back. Brakes off.
This, I think, handles your brakes for you. I should have checked to see if the brakes were on.
Released.
And I think we're ready to go. Always takes just a second or two here. And it's always kind of fun to come back to the cabin and watch the pushback.
Brakes released. Here we go.
Hey, look at that. We're good to go. Before start checklist is done, so we can go ahead and start the engines. Hey! All right, so to do this, we're going to go and do packs off. Packs are now off. And let's do a ground start. Oops, let's turn our fuel pumps on for all the engines. And pressure's off. We're going to start engine number 2. Ground start. Look down here and check down to see, do you have the N2 going here? So the N2 is coming up. And, boy, I got so many N2 numbers to remember. I think it's 25% on N2. Uh-oh. Let's go ahead and stop this. And let's do parking brakes. And let's lose the tug. Some of the scenery is a little bit messed up. I think that's good enough. And so there's 25, and I should have started this at 25. Let's see if we can start at 28. You can also go outside your airplane. One of the things that really impressed me about this airplane is as a passenger, I noticed sitting in the cabin, when the engines are on these airplanes are running at relatively low RPM, or they're going down to idle on a descent, there is this low rumble of the engine. And this is one of the first airplanes that I remember has modeled that low. Sorry, I don't do very good engine impressions. But this airplane has that sound, and you hear it on startup, and you also hear it as the throttles go to idle when we're starting our descent. And it really is pretty cool. Okay, we got a good start on this engine. I say we start engine number 2, number 1. And look down here, do we have N2? We have N2 going up, that looks good. Some other checks that I kind of have been blowing off and stuff, it's also important to look at your brake pressure before you even think of pushing back. And I need to start looking at those, because that's what the real pilots are looking at, 25, and fuel. These airplanes, like I said, are so complex and there's so much to learn. So once you get it, you say, okay, I can take off and I can land. But with this airplane, there's so much to learn down the road here that I'll be learning about this for the next few months. This airplane is also ETOPS, so you can also do overwater operations, which means this is an airplane you can take on across the pond. Now, you can't go from, Denver to Frankfurt, but you know what? You can actually go and take this on across the pond. Okay, so we got 2 good starts on our engines. They've been telling me to turn the MFD, hit the engine button here, and that clears the lower multifunction display. So if something pops up in there, you know that there's something wrong. If nothing's there, then life is supposedly good. I'm going to go back to the menu over here, go to the FMC, and I'm going to go over here and put progress over on the Copilot. And everything's looking good here. So let's go ahead, and we got the engines going. So we're going to go and turn the isolation valve to auto. We're going to turn the packs on. They've disconnected the front tug, so I'm going to turn the number 1 hydraulic electric pump on now. We have generators on the engines, so engine generators can go on. And at this point in time, we can go and turn off the APU. Before taxi checklist, generators, probe heaters. This is why you do a checklist. I forgot my probe heat. Anti-ice, it's San Diego, it's summertime. Isolation valve is on auto. Engine start switches go to continuous for takeoff. Pressurization, packs are on, and the flight level is set, and we are set to auto. The auto throttle, let's arm the auto throttle. I actually have the auto throttle set to a button on my throttles, so that's good. Recall. So there's the recall button, and nothing is on there, so that's good. Auto brakes go to RTO, rejected takeoff. Engine start levers are idle. Flight controls are checked. Ground equipment is groovy, and we are good to go. It is taxi time. So let's go over here. If you have a chair that tilts back and you have rudder pedals, now's a good time to reach down and just make sure that you're not going to lean back. That can be a problem. And let's see, we are still squawking transponder, so we're good to go here. Over here, I'm going to make sure that my charts are set over here. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to zoom out my taxi route, and I'm going to turn on following. I like to have this set up here for airports just because it's impossible to have the airport layouts of all the airports that we fly in and out of stacked up in your head. So that's what I do that. I think eventually we're going to probably have an EFB, so I won't have the external app like you see now. And this is good. Toe brakes releases your parking brake. And let's look over here, look left. And we're going to go this way. Parking brakes are released. You are going to have to add a little bit of throttle to get the airplane rolling forward. I wonder if we're stuck in a scenery error or something. We're not rolling. Oh, I know why. So I've got obviously the Thrustmaster Airbus. The parking brake on my Airbus, I don't have it mapped to anything, but it is on. So you have to turn that off too. Let's see if we go this time. Yep, that's it. So it's clearly mapped to something that I don't know about. Okay, once you get going, idle. This is one of those airplanes, by the way, that also taxis at idle, which I think is awesome. You might have noticed that I have a standard view. There's my standard view. And that's the 0 button for my main view. One of the things that I have, as you probably saw, I was looking right and looking left. I have that view set on a button on my stick. That way, if I'm looking around or something, I don't have to take my hand off the throttle or the stick to be able to go and return my view to the main view right there. And I think that that really helps. Okay, we've had a little bit of thrust here. So if you look over here at the primary, the main display here, see my ground speed, my airspeed is 45. So airspeed isn't alive. How do you know how fast you're going? Look over here where it says ground speed, and there's your speedometer, like in your car. So this tells you how fast you're taxiing. And I generally do a thrust idle taxi, and my thrust idle taxi is going to be right around 10 to 15 knots. Less than 10 knots if I have to make a 90-degree turn. Now in this case, we're doing a long little straightaway, so I don't mind if I increase my speed up to 20 knots, but no more than that. These things do not stop on a dime, especially when you're taxiing. And if you do try to stop on a dime, the first class passengers that are already simping a very expensive cocktail will probably spill it. And you don't want to have stuff spilled all over your first class passengers. Like I said, this airplane is so amazingly detailed. Trying to get a little bit better at staying on the center line. So once you look in here, you see, where's my center line? Okay, it's right over here. So there's the center line. Oops, speed's coming up. There's 17 knots. Back to thrust idle. Now it's 18 knots. Don't want to go too fast. If it goes to 19, then I know that I'll need some brakes. But right now we seem to be holding about 18 knots on this big old straightaway. Up 17, so we're going to start to slow down a little bit. That's good. Let's see. Before takeoff checklist is flaps. So flaps should go to 1. I'm still using buttons for my flaps here on this, so I'm not using the Airbus flap lever on the Boeing airplanes. Airbus has 4 D10s. Boeing has a lot more. The MD-11 has even more than that, so that one doesn't work so well. Trim for takeoff. Trim is going to be 5.12. So there is our tray. There's 5. That's probably pretty close. And the before takeoff checklist is done. This is a very nicely defined departure. So we can go ahead and immediately, as soon as we make the turn here, we'll go ahead and turn on LNAV. We'll get ready with VNAV too. A lot of that just works absolutely perfectly in this airplane. We got a notch of flaps there. Leading edge slats are looking good, and it appears to be a foggy morning here in San Diego. Everything's good here. I'm going to go ahead and, it's probably too soon. Maybe you do that as soon as you make the turn onto the runway. We're going to turn on traffic. And get back on our center line. And everything's looking pretty good so far. There are so many little things to remember about these airplanes. And each one is a little bit different, and they're so complex. A great sunrise over San Diego. Okay, that was the Bravo 4 taxiway. So we've got the Charlie 3 and then Bravo 1, and we're almost ready to go. Flight control panel is nicely set up. Okay, we're thrust idle. What's our speed? Coming down to 10 knots. We got a 90-degree turn, so, you know, I'd like to think that I'm all clever on this one, but pretty much we did okay. 4 takeoff checks are done. All it is line up and go. If we were on VATSIM about now, we might get on Unicom if there was no ATC, and we would say something along the lines of San Diego traffic, United 737 is approaching Bravo 1 and taking off on runway 27, San Diego. You might have noticed that I called myself on my little demonstration there. I did not give my flight number. So let's say there's 5 Uniteds out here, and maybe there's a United 757 and there's a Airbus, but we're a 737. So for announcing your intentions for other people, if you say what kind of airplane and maybe what your colors are, maybe that helps them identify you a little bit better, as opposed to, okay, which one of those is going to be United 441? Just makes it a little easier for other people. And here we are coming up here. So nobody's on approach because I'm not in multiplayer on VATSIM, so we're just going to taxi on out like we own the place here. And we're going about 9 knots, so that's good. Coming onto an active runway. So after you cross the line, this is when I'm going to go ahead And I'm going to do my strobes, my position lights. And on this airplane, the position lights are on the nav lights. So it's just one switch. So strobes are on. We'll also come down here, start squawking. And then a very, very nice controlled turn. I always overturn. I always overturn a little bit and have to come back. I think it's too much time in the 757. We're nicely lined up. I think that's looking good. So I'm going to do the inner taxi lights. I don't think I need the outers right now. Maybe that's wrong. So throttle's going up a little bit to about 20-25%. I'll look down and see, are they stable? They are. And then I push my throttles all the way up until you get to the top end of this. Uh-oh. Auto throttle.
Your speed's alive.
There we go. I didn't go far enough. This airplane also has speed callouts. And I really appreciate callouts like that. Because I need to keep my keep my eyes on the stick, my eyes on the runway, and having the altitude callouts like that are really, really nice. Oh yeah, I can't use the Airbus gear lever on this one, and I didn't turn on my flight directors. Speed's coming way down. We're climbing way too fast. And that stick shaker. Wow, haven't had a stick shaker here. We were just bolting off the runway there. This was not the most exciting of takeoffs. That's because I was spending too much time stressing about landing gear going off and up and off. There's our turn on Surfer. Flaps. Let's go and do LNAV and VNAV. These buttons here, by the way, they take their time. And Command A. Little bit of a turn over to our first checkpoint, but not much of one. So clearly forgot to start the flight directors, took off way too steep, stalled it out. I'll bet that woke the passengers up back there. I like to keep my heading bugs set up here. You probably noticed on some of these videos that I will make, there will be a mistake that I make. Guess what? You can recover from your mistakes. And I think that it's a good idea to do those sorts of things. You can recover from a goof and continue on a flight. That's particularly helpful, I think, when you're talking about wanting to participate in an event like Cross the Pond. Let's go ahead and widen out the map a little bit. There's our departure, gives us some altitudes. So passing 15,000 feet, ATC would probably say climb and maintain 27,000 feet. So there's 27,000. We'd be talking to departure now. But you can recover from these kinds of mistakes. And since there's only 2 cross the ponds each year, if you make a mistake, it's not game over. Up 10,000 feet, landing lights could go off. And I did not turn on my nose light for taxi. Boy, I'm getting all sorts of demerits today. Here's our speed coming up. Passing 11,000 feet. Our target now is set to 27,000. ATC now is saying climb maintain flight level 380. If there was a lot of traffic, they might hold us down a little bit. We also need to be prepared to slow the airplane down. Take control of the speed. Right now, we're letting the airplane, the FMC, handle the speed. But If there's a lot of traffic, you might have to start taking control of the speed. And 296 and 296, after takeoff checklists, engine bleeds are on, packs are on auto, landing gear is up and off, flaps are up, and it might be a little too soon, but we're out of the clouds. We're going to turn off the restart, the engine starters. We'll turn them back on when it's time to come in for landing. Passing 14,000 feet. And we have a beautiful sunrise departure. Over California. How about that? It's kind of nice to go outside and take a look. That's part of this. That's a part of this. Being able to go and look out the window like this. I mean, how long has it been since you've been in, gotten to take a trip? Over on my charts, we can go over here to the Padres departure, and we can see how we're doing on the Padres departure here. At this point in time, if I want to be a little more challenging, I will stop. I might turn off the moving map mode. But depending upon the amount of coffee that I've had, that's just another visual reference of letting me know that I am in the correct place in the sky. How's everything up here? I don't see anything flashing red. I think everything's good up there. Hopefully. I don't see any problems here, aside from being a little sloppy on the departure and stalling out on the departure. Hey, we're still flying. I don't think I bent anything. Up 18,000 feet. We forgot to go altimeters to standard at 18,000. And we're coming up on Gwyn. We're supposed to be above 8,000 feet. We're pretty good there. Our speed's good. We don't appear to be leaking fuel. See, over here on the progress page, things are looking good there. We are 364 miles south of San Francisco. Looks like it's got us touching down around 1431 Zulu. We should have 5,700 pounds of fuel in the tanks. The remaining fuel is at 5.6. So we're ahead of the fuel game too. That number might not seem too terribly significant to you but you really want to not see this. Okay, it just dropped down to 9.6. You really don't want to see this number dropping an awful lot at the beginning of Cross the Pond, because it means you're going to run out of gas on such a long flight. Passing 27,000 feet. We're in climb mode. So next things to start learning. What are some of the things I'll start learning on this? Boarding the airplane, boarding fuel. Those are things that you do through the flight management computer. I think that those are going to be some things that I'll be working on. Other things I'm going to work on with this airplane was my departure technique was really pretty sloppy. Spent an awful lot of time in the Phoenix A320 lately, and not a lot of time in this. And these airplanes are getting to the point where you got to stay practiced up. Even some of the older, simpler airplanes, the Boeing 247D, the 1930s area twin prop, the original jetliner there. Yeah, I'm so rusty on that, I don't think I'd even want to go in there. 307 is our heading. We're past 25,000 feet. This is usually when I go to seatbelts to auto. Unless we were if we were in a turbulence area at that point in time, okay, I'd probably leave it on. Well, I would leave it on. But as soon as I can, I'm going to go and turn it off because I will never forget the one flight that I did where I got the Venti instead of the Grande. And it was a particularly bumpy flight, and the seatbelt sign never went off. Trust me, kids, the older you get, the more that will become a factor in your life. Sorry. Yeah, real world flight tips from the Spy Flight. Always no more than the Grande when you go to the coffee counter. Passing 28,000 feet. We're looking pretty good here. The schedule. So one of the sets of numbers that you're going to see on the flight, in the description on my flight notes, it's this set of 4 numbers here at the end. Out, off, on, in. These are numbers that real airlines and real pilots care about. So we are actually supposed to be touching down in San Francisco at 14:54 Zulu. Let's see, it's 13. We were supposed to be out at we were supposed to be off at 13:36. We're at 13:20. It's 13:36, so that's good. 14:54, really? And on the ground, I guess. I didn't think this was that long. It's an hour and 7 minutes. Anyhow, those are numbers that, as far as trying to take your flight simming to the next level, is that's one of the things that you do. So you're looking out the window here. There is Santa Catalina Island. One of the things that is fun to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator is, now that we're coming out of here, we're going to get out of this, is you've got your moving map, and this gives you an idea of what's really down there. So if you're stuck at home, you don't get out as much as you'd like to, haven't been able to travel, this is a great way to travel in the sim world. And because the scenery is so amazing, you can actually, look out the window and see, passing San Clemente down there. Boy, okay, the clouds. Whenever you want to go touristy, I will tell you that there's always clouds. That's just seems to be a rule. But we're coming up on Long Beach in LA. And with some of the increasing levels of points of interest that you get in Microsoft Flight Simulator, this is going to help you start spotting stuff. Wow, talk about a cloudy morning all along the West Coast today. If you don't have Navigraph, which is what I was using over here, there is something that you can get for free, and it actually works really pretty good, and you can do the same sort of stuff with it. So if you take a look here, this is called Sim Toolkit Pro. And if you look up, see, we're passing Long Beach in LA. So there's our airplane right there. So there was San Clemente that we passed earlier. So you could also use this as your tour guide if you want to go exploring. And seriously, with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and you're not able to get out, you're not able to travel, this is the next best thing. And you actually you can actually do those sorts of things. It's also showing a couple areas of low clouds and rain. Looks like we've got some stormy weather here off the coast. I think that's kind of normal though for the West Coast. And it looks like, let's see, we've already got stuff in here in Modesto. There's Sacramento, might be getting a little bit of light rain this morning too. So that's kind of a normal thing. Fact is, it looks like there may actually be some possible thunderstorms here south of Sacramento. One of the things that I don't like an awful lot about using this map is when you're trying to read the names of the towns and some of the points of interest, the map automatically kind of turns stuff on and turns stuff off, and then makes it smaller so you can't see it. So this is not ideal for, touristy flying like I'm doing today, but it's okay. And again, if you don't have Navigraph, definitely suggest that. This is a little bit better for being able to take a look at names. I can see them better. And maybe there's a setting that I can change over in Sim Toolkit Pro that I don't know about here. Passing 36,000 feet, and you can see it's we're going to be fairly close to our top of climb. I have turned on airports. So one of the things the real pilots do is they want to have the airports list. If I have an engine failure, all you have to do is look over here. It says, up there's LAX. You know, you can see, here's an airport over here. And that really helps you out. 1,000 feet to go from top of climb. And we'll settle into cruise. Generally what I will do is when it is time for cruise, once we get the cockpit set up and we're in cruise mode, I will usually hit pause on the recording, on recording the video. And this gives you just the opportunity to sit and fly along. If there's a significant thing that I have to do in the cockpit, I start the video back up. But this would be where you would hit pause. How do you know when to start the video again? Generally when we are about 100 miles from top of descent. So right now we're 194 miles from top of descent. We are in cruise mode. So this is the point where the pilots would be getting on the PA and saying, hey passengers, we're at our cruising altitude at 38,000 feet. San Francisco is 192 miles to the north of us. Right now, weather in San Francisco, visibility is pretty good. There's a slight breeze out of the west, so it should be a nice smooth landing. And the temperature, so we know our temperature is 12 degrees based on the METAR. Way down here, I've got a little cheat sheet. So 12 degrees, it's about 52, 53 degrees. There are pilots that can do that math in their head. I am very envious of people that can do that. I have to have a cheat sheet. So there we go. We are in cruise. Everything's looking good. The passengers are back in their seats having their morning coffee. This is United, so they're probably also having a Stroop waffle, is the little breakfast snack that they give to people back in steerage. This is about when I'm going to hit the pause button. So you can hit the pause button too, and we'll check back in 100 miles from top of descent. Okay, it's about being an airplane geek, all right? Who doesn't like things with wings? Welcome back. We're about 100 miles from top of descent. I hope you like that. I'm having a little bit of fun with the drone camera, and every now and then I can get actually some nice drone camera views. And wow, does this airplane. I've really enjoyed every aspect of learning about this airplane. I really have. We have got amazing scenery here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and now we're getting these amazing airplanes too. And welcome back. So here we are. Beautiful day in the neighborhood, and as we look down here, you can see right around 107 miles from top of descent. So this is when I usually start my descent preps right now. And let's have a quick look over here, and we start looking at the charts. And first of all, we're going to go and clean out some of this here. And I've actually forgotten to get one chart, so let's go over here, and we need to go to San Francisco and do open, And look down here, and we need taxi, and I did not get parking gates. So the real world flight that I'm following is supposed to be going to gate D10. I didn't realize that United parked all the way out here in the little triangle, but there is D10. So now we know where our gate is. That's a good thing to know about. 28 right. So after 28 right, we're probably realistically going to hit the Tango taxiway here. This is going to probably be the high speed. So we would then come back probably via Bravo and Echo into the gate. So we know about that. ILS, it's simple. At Eddy, we want to be at 6,000 feet for the ILS on runway 28 right. Minimums for a Category 1 approach are 213 feet. So that's great. The ILS, 111.7. We do have to dial that in, I believe. Oh, wait a minute. No. I think we do. We'll have to wait and let's look and see. Totally forgot about that. Surfer, as I end up losing my voice. So Surfer, there is that 6,000 feet and 240 knots at Eddy. Transition is 18,000 feet. So 6,000 feet at this point in time, ATC would very probably be telling us to descend via the Surfer arrival. And maybe expect a runway. They'd probably at this point just tell us San Francisco's landing on the 28. So that means we can put in 6,000 feet here. 6,000 feet. So we're going to dial that in right now. 6,000 feet. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's come on down here. And I believe that we dial in the ILSs here. I think that, yeah, this is an airplane where you have to do it yourself. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. And there's so many airplanes swimming around up here. So ILS that we're talking about is going to be 28 right. And that's going to be 111.7. It's tough to keep all these straight in your head. 111.7. There we go. And I'm going to just go ahead and make that active right now. There is a VOR at the airfield, 115.8. So 115.8. And that's going to give me a DME down here a little bit sooner on number 2. Okay, how we doing here? We are 43 miles from top of descent. We should expect a top of descent indicator to show up here in just a bit. Let's go ahead and redo our heading to 305. And that's good too. Next step in my process is going to be let's get an updated METAR. There are several places to do that. You can get it through Sim Toolkit Pro. One of my favorite places in the United States is DIST. So we can go and we can look at what's going on at the real airport. So KSFO and San Francisco Airport. Their current information is Gulf. The winds are 290 at 10. So the weather, this weather has changed a little bit. So I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to go and highlight this. And I'm going to put these over in my little line of flight notes here. So there we go. So there we have those. So there's that. And let's see. Quiet Bridge VA in use. Landing runway 28 left and 28 right. So we could be doing either or. So if we were on VATSIM, right now you saw in my charts I have 28 right set up. I would also go and get the chart for 28 left because they could put me on either one. And if you do it now, you'll have the chart available when you want that. Let's see, there's 5G NOTAMs in effect right now. So, you know, got to watch out for 5G. That's become a thing. And I'll bet that there is bird activity in the vicinity of the airport too. Let's go and see. Oh, darn birds in the vicinity of the airport. Oh, and there's a crane too. I assume that the crane, 240 feet, it's west of runway 28 left. So there's a crane out there too. There's cranes just popping up everywhere. So, okay, we're pretty well briefed on that. And by the way, that is a very, very short, small rabbit hole. You really want to jump into some rabbit holes on these airplanes? My flight plan file that came down from SimBrief is 31 pages long. You want to come down here. So there's forecast winds. There's more winds. And we're going to come. Okay, here's all the NOTAMs. So here's all the NOTAMs that you can have. So there was the San Diego NOTAMs. The real pilots, guess what? They go through all 31 pages. So if you wonder why they're kind of cranky when they get on the airplane, they've had to read 31 pages of NOTAMs. So, okay, they're probably cranky for other reasons too. Anyway, so everything is good to go here. We're all set. We've got our frequencies preset. We are on 122.8. We're squawking correctly. We are now 62 miles from top of descent. Oh, I read the wind. You really can do that. You have to watch that. So we are 61 miles from top of descent, and that's supposed to happen at 14:08 Zulu. So we have 8 minutes. Okay, I'll do a little bit better job. Let's see, what can we do now? We could also, along with looking here at the D-ATIS, and I wish there were more ATIS from around the world that was available like this. So let's go to the METAR page, and let's go KSFO. And again, this is a great way to visualize what the weather's going to do, what the wind's going to do. So we're going to be on the 28 right. So you can see that if we land on 28 right here, the wind is going to be from the right, and it's going to blow us off to the left side of the runway. Our winds right now are 8 knots. It also shows that there's broken clouds at 20,000 feet, some more scattered clouds at 16, and a few clouds at 600. I'll bet that's the morning fog that burned off. It's going to give you your altimeter setting. Oh, and by the way, this is also if you look here, there is a lot more that you can look at. You can look at temperature trends. You can also take a look at the forecast. You can look at the crosswind and headwind components. So on 28 right, the winds are basically, it's 2 knots blowing us off to the right, 7 knots right down the runway. So you can kind of get that in your head too. There's all sorts of cool, it shows you clouds and the temperatures. There's a lot of rabbit holes that you can jump down. And that's part of the challenge. A lot of people, not a lot, but a few people have been asking me over on the Spyflight live stream, you know, what's the big old challenge? Okay, once you get the airplane up in the air and you land it okay, you know, and I think that there's a lot more to learn, plus the weather changes every day. And quite frankly, you saw how sloppy my takeoff was on this airplane. Being really good takes practice. And so that's the challenge on all of this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to increase this out a little bit more. And I believe this is going to be my, yep, there is top of descent right over Surfer. I don't know what it is, but the top of descent indicator is always on top of some waypoint. And you have to zoom in and look at it for sure. And let's see, we're changing our heading a little bit. Here's an irritating thing, and I don't know exactly what the problem is, but you've noticed my mouse pointer here. See how it doesn't change? If I go and click outside of all of this, the mouse pointer as you fly along starts to change on this airplane. And the only way to get the little up arrow, so like if we were going to come here, all it is, it's not even going to show that it's on top of the airplane anymore, on top of the switch. Now, if I click it, I can turn on the light, but it doesn't show that you know, you could use the thumb wheel or something. The only way that I know to get that back is to come over here and click, and then maybe click the top banner and then get off. And now all of a sudden you can see, see now it shows that you can click here. You can see over here, now it's a down for the APU. So that seems to be the only way that I know how to do that. And I'm not sure, maybe I'm making a mistake, but those are just some of the things that kind of get in the way, especially when you're getting ready to come in and land. So now I'm going to move this over here and I'm going to just go minimize something. And now you see, now it worked this time. So sometimes it seems like when you go out and move something around, that becomes a problem. 38,000 feet. Top of descent is now 31 miles out. We're coming in on it fast. Let's see, we're still supposed to be landing in San Francisco, touching down at 14:30 Zulu. We're supposed to be at the gate at 1500, so we're actually running a little bit early. Get the passengers to the gate. That's sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. Now, I think San Francisco probably has enough departure gates and stuff, but you know, there's sometimes that if there isn't a gate available, the other thing that has to be available is ground crew. If you don't have ground crew available, or gate staff. So, you know, being early is nice, but you can be, I think that in airlines, you can be too early, and that becomes a problem too. And as we start to see some more advanced airline types of applications happening in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you know, I'm thinking about things like GSX. Remember GSX over on P3D? You start getting these airline environments, you know, showing up on time is important. And, you know, being late is not a good deal. Being early can be a bad deal too. One of the things that you'll notice is as you fly along, going into an airline's hub, you probably will notice that the cost index should be a little bit higher because they want, coming into a hub like San Francisco or Denver, chances are the people that are flying here are not stopping in San Francisco. Maybe they're continuing on to another airport. And so they want those airplanes to show up on time. And definitely not late, because if you've got a bunch of passengers who have missed their connections, that becomes an additional expense and an additional problem for the airline. And so the airplanes that are coming into a hub, as opposed to, you know, going out of a hub to someplace like Billings where nobody's going to make a connection except with, you know, a taxi cab maybe. That's less important for an on-time arrival. You can be a little bit later there. And those smaller airports, they're going to have a little bit more turnaround time too than these airplanes at the hub. Okay, so 13 miles top of descent. This is a Boeing. So we've already set our altitude in here. So that means that this airplane's going to start its descent automatically for us. Airbus, the A319, 20, 21, I think the A350 and A380, they actually want you to push a button. Airbus wants a human being to tell the airplane, yes, go ahead, you can descend. Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, if you set your altitude in there, you can just, it assumes that you know what you're doing and the airplane will do what you've set up. So 8 miles to top of descent. Passengers have nice views. So we're starting to get really great views outside the airplane as the morning fog and morning clouds seem to have burned off the coast. And by and large, looks like it's going to be a nice day in California. Be fun to go there. My late mom really liked going to San Francisco. There was a touristy spot on the wharf called Bodine's sourdough bread. And one of the things that they would do is you would get this bread bowl, and so they cut the top, this round piece of bread, and they cut the top off and hollow out the inside and put a big old ladle full of clam chowder or chili or something like that in there, and you eat it out of the bread bowl. And as you're done with the soupy stuff, now you've got the bread to enjoy too. It was really good. And there we go. We have hit top of descent, and the airplane has started descending. Down we go. Some pilots really time these sorts of things. So some pilots I've noticed, they will, as soon as the airplane starts descending, they will pick up the microphone, say, hello, folks, again from the flight deck. You probably noticed from the change in the pitch of the deck that we've started our descent into San Francisco. At this time, we are going to turn on the seatbelt sign, ask you all to return to your seats, and get everything cleaned up for our arrival. San Francisco weather hasn't changed very much. Winds are still out of the west at about 10 knots, good visibility, and the temperature's up a degree or two, so getting closer to 55. Certainly want to thank you for flying with us today, and we'll see you in the friendly skies soon. One of the things is one of the not so best kept secrets is I used to be a broadcaster in radio and TV. So just rattling off something like that is relatively easy for me. But if you look upon, if you know, what I just did and said, if you can kind of think along those lines and maybe try it yourself. Look, if you're at home by yourself and, you know, your annoying little brother or sister isn't going to laugh at you as you talk to yourself like that, if you start doing things like that, especially if you're afraid of talking on VATSIM, that is going to help you do what I call airplane talk. And that's going to help you learn those sorts of things. You know, also practicing your lines. If we were coming into San Francisco right now, I would probably get on 122.8. San Francisco traffic, United 737 has just started the Surfer 2 arrival, setting up for the ILS runway 28 right, San Francisco. Practice those sorts of things, and then when you get onto VATSIM, you'll be less tongue-tied and less afraid of being on VATSIM. One of the hardest things that I think that people have to do is the initial call up to request a clearance, but it's simple. Who you are, what you are, do you have the latest DIST information, and what you want. That's it. So in my case, back there at San Diego, I would have done, San Diego clearance, United 441, 737 on the ground with you here at Gate 41. Information tangos aboard, clearance to San Francisco. And if you practice those things and say them out loud, you'll feel a little silly for about 30 seconds. And then as you get into doing stuff like that, then that's going to help you get over the mic fright of talking on the radio. And by the way, you're also not alone when it comes to talking on the radio too, because real world pilots have live streams on Twitch and on YouTube, and they have confessed, that they are nervous talking on radios, and they are nervous talking on VATSIM. So it's not just beginners. And our descent's going pretty good here. Looks like we're going to be out at 6,000 feet right at Eddy. You can see Eddy is right over here. And the little green banana line here, it's bouncing up and down a little bit, but you can see that the winds are a little bit shifty up here today too. And when you have a second, always take a little bit of time to look out your windows. Always take a little bit of time to look out the windows. There is a camera mod that you can make. And I'm going to put this in the description. And in fact, by the time you hear about this, it will be in the description. But there is a modification. Let's see if it's still here. Yeah, at flightsim.to. So it's called the Boeing PMDG 737 free camera mode. Okay, and this is a little mod or mode. What does that say? It's mode. I think they meant mod, which doesn't have a silent E at the end. So now this is how you can kind of move around the airplane a little bit. I'm doing something like this, but again, like I said, this is in the description. So this is going to get you started on being able to set your camera modes or mods. And where is this? I'm putting it in the description, which is already there for you. And camera mod. Okay, and that's there. All right, it is in the description. You'll also find links to FlightAware. You'll also find links to METAR/TAF. So those are the links that I used. You'll also find links to the SpyFlights Discord. There are some really smart people over on the SpyFlights Discord, a lot smarter than I am. And if you're trying to figure something out late at night, chances are you're going to be able to get some help that way. And that's going to be a nice thing for you. There's also a link to the SpyFlight over on Twitch. We do group flights all the time. Usually our departure time is 1900 Zulu. And you are definitely welcome to join us whenever you possibly can. I'm also really new here on the world of YouTube. So I'm a long way from being able to be one of the privileged people that's monetized on YouTube. So did start best if you'd like what you're seeing and would like to support, I would greatly appreciate it. And you can do that over as a subscriber on Twitch. And I've also just added Ko-fi if you don't want to subscribe on Twitch. And there should be a Ko-fi link in the description. I haven't got it there now, but I will remember to do that. And we are looking pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and start dialing my map in just a little bit, passing 20,000 feet. We've already got our latest METAR. I'm just going to verify that I did KSFO. I think we talked about it. I don't remember going. So this is 21. So 21. This says 1356 Zulu. This is not the. Mine is old. So just Control C and put that over in your flight notes. There we go. I've got it all set up. And the reason I cared about that is we're approaching 18,000 feet and I need the altimeter setting, which is 2989. So at 18,000 feet, 2989. Fact is, we're so close. Let's go and hit the standard button and dial in 2989. There we go. I really do like the having the option, an easy option to just permanently set on this airplane, on the airplane. Hey, one altimeter sets them all. This airplane is meant for 2 people and you're busy enough, especially in a huge VATSIM event. So it's really kind of nice to have that. Seatbelts are in good shape. Everything's in good shape up there. Oh, you know what? I never turned off my APU bleed. Oopsie. Is oopsie a good airline term? I don't know. Guess what? We can do the descent checklist. And our descent checklist is pressurization is set to the landing altitude, which is nothing. Let's do recall. And recall is clear. Auto brakes. Oops, I never turned off my auto brakes from RTO. Another oopsie on this one. Let's go ahead and do auto brakes 3. Landing data. Landing data. Yes. I know you can't hit that speed at Epic. Let's go ahead and do init reference and our reference speed. I'm finding with this airplane, I do my best landings at 30, flaps 30. So that's going to be 123. I always add about 2 or 3 knots to round it up to the next easy number to remember. So 125. So landing data is done. Our approach briefing has been done on a ridiculously ad nauseum basis. So we're good to go there. Another thing that you need to start reviewing is missed approach. Especially if you're going to be doing a VATSIM type of event. There's going to be airplanes that pop up there. Missed approach, climb to 3,000 feet. And basically straight ahead to the VICU waypoint and hold. So there we go. And there's an alternate at the an alternate missed approach. Holding point is the Sausalito VOR. So all of that is good to go. Let's see, minimums, 213 feet. We need to set minimums. So that's going to be over here, and we're already set to Barrow. We're going to dial this up to 213. 213. So it's a small number down here and a number and a knob over there. Okay, this is looking good. This is looking good. Again, apologies for the sniffles. I swear, it's still chilly outside Spy HQ, but I gotta tell you, there has been rain. And the pollen is starting to appear. And I don't know about you, but it's kind of a thing here. No, I haven't been drinking Corona beer or anything like that. It's not the dreaded bug. Passing 12,000 feet. How's our speed? 280. We're going to have a couple of speed restrictions coming up on this one too. At Eddie, it's 6,000 feet and 240 knots. the airplane should slow us down. If we want to verify that, we could go to legs, eddy, see how the numbers are big here. In fact, at Fullet, we're supposed to be down to 240 knots and 8,000, 6,000 or above, and there's 240 knots at eddy. So a big number means that's a hard constraint that the airplane is counting on. Uh-oh. Yeah, so there's gonna be a speed reduction before Fullet. And you can kind of see the airplane right now is starting to reduce our speed as we approach 10,000 feet. So 10,000 feet, let's go up here and do landing lights and pre-arm the little nose light too. Let's see, logo light, should have turned that off. Man, I'm just wasteful today. For me, I'm finding that a great time to practice stuff is a morning flight. Now, you know, I'm also sort of, you know, I have the time to be able to do this, but an early morning flight when the weather's kind of calm and stuff, it's a great time to fly. Okay, there's our speed coming down. You can see that the deviation, the descent deviation has kicked up a little bit. At this point, you might want to go and throw out a notch of speed brake here. And if you look outside the window, you can see there's a little bit of speed brake there. It's harder to see there. A little bit of wing flex too. So there's 240. And now, there we go. There's our speed. There it is. We're going to catch back up. So I've still just, again, it was a notch of speed brake so we can descend a little bit faster. And then we'll put the speed brakes back. Let's see. Now's a good time to arm the speed brakes. To do that, just click over here on the screw, and the speed brakes are armed for landing. So auto brakes and speed brakes are good to go. I don't think we need any more speed brake at the moment. We're going to be a little bit high at eddy, so maybe a little more speed brake would help. Let's see if that'll reduce us. Yeah, a little more speed brake will get us at 6,000 at eddy. And after eddy, it's going to be 3,000. So let's just clear ourselves down to 3,000 on this and let the airplane continue to handle it. So yeah, we're going to be a little high, I guess, at eddy. Okay, see, here comes our little deviation indicator here. So now that that's popping up, then we can go and tuck the speed brakes away. If you're like me and you tend to get kind of comfortable in your gamer chair or whatever chair you're in, now's the perfect time to sit up straight, you know, what they say over on Twitch called a posture check. And that way that you're ready to put your feet on your rudder pedals and you can reach all the controls. Okay, there we go. We're now on our descent. Let's restow the speed brakes, and you're going to have to rearm them if you use them. Now, I've been using auto throttle. My physical throttles here in the cockpit, I'm going to actually move them down a little bit. I'm using the Airbus stuff, so I'm going to move them below the cruise detent here as the airplane continues to descend. And it looks like everything is pretty good. We do have we do have DME now, so we're 18 miles DME from the ILS, and we're 17 miles, so you can see we're receiving navigation. At this point in time, I'm going to go, and since I have a second, I'm going to go over here and change this, and I'm going to change it over here and zoom this in a little bit, and just have this ready to go for landing, because we get so busy when we're landing. The other thing that I've forgotten to do is my inbound course, which would be 284 degrees. You do the inbound course, 284. You do that the same time you're setting your ILS. And I think it's 284. Let's just check. Yep, 284. Okay, everything's looking good. We're coming up on SEPN, and we're supposed to be above 3,000 feet. We're going to be. Now, at this point in time, I'm going to take control of my descent here, and mostly my speed. because I want to go to 210 knots just because that's a good number for me. And we can go ahead and do a notch of flaps. So we're going to go and start rolling our flaps out. Hopefully the flaps are going to add a little bit of drag to us, so it's going to get our speed down to 210, which is what we need. We do have glide slope and localizer, so let's get a little bit of help with the airplane. I'm going to activate the approach. A thing to remember about the buttons here when you're doing LNAV, VNAV, approach and stuff, this is not instant gratification. You click it. When you click these things, it does not immediately turn, the light does not turn on immediately. We are 12 miles DME, getting ready to turn final. At this point for a turn to final, and as we're getting closer in, now I'm going to go and get my speed down to 180. Generally, I'm noticing most airports are going to bring you in at this point at 180 until you're about 5 miles DME from the runway. And this is, I believe, 10 miles. So looking up here, we're going to go and bring our map in one more click. Yep. So there's the 10 miles. So there's the 5 miles. If we were talking to ATC, they would say 180 knots to Axmal. After that, we're going to go 125 knots for landing. I got the airport. I got the runway. Never too early to do landing gear. There comes the wheels.
2,500.
And we're looking good there. We can do another notch of flaps. So now we are at flaps 5. I'm going to flaps 20. There's Axmal, so we're 1 mile away from the point where we would be able to do our final approach speed. And if you have a second, look outside. If you have a second, look outside, enjoy the view. That's part of the fun, at least for me. Okay, that's close enough to 5 miles. That's Axmal. Speed 125. Remember, we had that one set up. So 125 for landing. Another notch of flaps. Outer marker. Landing checklist. Engine start switch. Continuous. Speed brake is armed. Let's make sure it is armed. Landing gear is down and flaps are coming out. Flaps are coming out. We're going to flaps 30 for landing. And if you get a chance, be sure and go out and have a look. And you get to watch flaps. Even just getting to watch the flaps go rolling out is kind of cool. One more notch. There's flaps 30. Sit back in your chair. Reach over, put your hand gently on the stick. Get ready to take control. Other hand goes over to the throttles. And at this point, I'm going to be getting ready to do reversers. And turn off the auto throttle. 125 knots, that's good. What a great looking little airplane. And I say that as somebody that's never really been a gigantic fan of the 737. It just, you know, it's the workhorse kind of thing, and there's much more interesting airplanes, but this one is absolutely amazing. Letting the airplane do a little bit of the work for me here. Especially if you're creating content. Auto throttle is off. Captain's airplane. Remember, we've got a wind that's going to be blowing us from the right. Little high, little fast.
Minimums.
I should go around, but we need to land.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Reversers. Well, we're a little bit, we're settling up pretty good. Disconnect the auto brakes. Manual braking. Welcome to San Francisco. Wow, still kind of cloudy and misty here today. And flaps can go up. Speed brakes can go down. Look down, make sure. And we need to hold short. Ooh, looks like it's we got a little bit of rain here. And this is the Tango Taxiway, just like we thought we were going to be on. Hold short if you're doing multiplayer and stuff before you go across the runway. Important safety tip. Landing lights off. Strobes. Sometimes it's just hard to do these. Oh, that was anti-collision, no wonder. Steady. And there's our hold short for the runway here. Being a good pilot. Anybody on approach? Nope. Let's go ahead and clear ourselves across the runway. Across the runway we go. That's right, I can't get to it here. APU. APU's going on. And probably ought to move a little bit faster here. So we're on the Delta Taxiway. We're going to Bravo. Look at that. No scratches in the paint. And again, the biggest thing that I'm trying to also work on is keeping the nose wheel on the center line. That's a thing with these airplanes. On the center line of your taxi. Okay, we are going to D10. So we're across the runway. We were going to go and do the Bravo. And we're going to that little triangular area, which is over there. We've got an APU up and running. Passengers are going to want to get off the airplane quick, so we're going to get the bleed going on in. We'll open the isolation valve. Everything's looking good here. We'll turn off the auto brakes. Okay, we're going to come up here. This should be Taxiway Echo. And there's the gates over there. Delta 10 that we're coming up at is the second from the end in the triangle here. I didn't realize, like I said, that United went all the way down here. We'll also clear the auto throttle. And I think that's it right there. I've never really parked over on this side. Ah, there's numbers. They got the big numbers there, so let's go ahead and just do it like this. Hopefully this is the right one. One of the other things that is really missing in the world of Microsoft Flight Simulator right now is gate guidance going in. That's a thing that we kind of need. I think this is Delta 11 or 12. And a nice easy stop and parking brakes. And everything's looking good here. Let's go ahead and get the generators over on the APU. And with the generators on the APU, we should have done the relight off earlier, and then engines. Let's see, we'll also do standby. Should have gone to transponder when we got there. By now, the passengers want to get up, so seatbelts are off. We could also do anti-collision, should be off now. I should have done the taxi light off earlier. We can do these fuel. And everything else is good over here. Now we can come down here and we'll go over to menu and FS actions. And we can go ground services. And let's go ahead and get ground power. Oh, we got to put our own chocks in. So there's chocks. And now we can do ground power. As they're connecting ground power, it says that the jetway is currently inhibited. So we should be able to turn off a few more things. Let's see. We can trip in ground power now. And that's going to save a little juice back there. All the other lights are good up here. Oh, we also turned off electric 1. And I should have turned off the probe heaters. Now, can we get a jetway? We can request a jetway. And there is our jetway. Didn't have far to go. Uh-oh. I guess it automatically came out when I did something because we just released the jetway. No. We need a jetway. Come on, jetway. Ah, here comes our jetway. Passengers are saying, what's going on? It always seems to take forever to get that door open, doesn't it? So this is a time to not be rushed. And there goes that. And now that we have a jetway in place, we can come down here and return. And we can go to doors. And we can open up the L1. And there we go. Last little thing that I'm going to look at here is what do I have for fuel? I'm 5.5. I should have had 5.6. Obviously, I think that we won the fuel game. The other thing we'll look at is the clock. It is 14:36 Zulu. Technically, we were supposed to be at the gate at 1500 Zulu. So it's almost 8 a.m. And if you really want to just see how well you did, you can come over to a web browser and we can look and see where is, that's METAR, San Francisco, and look at our flight that we shadowed. So right now, they landed 2 minutes ago. They're taxiing to gate Delta 10. We actually beat the real one to the gate. They were out of the gate about 4 minutes early. We were probably out of the gate, I'm guessing, I think that we were out of the gate maybe 6 or 7 minutes early, maybe a little bit more, but we made it. And as I like to say, nobody was hurt, nobody was arrested. How about that? And again, let's see, we could have done the shutdown checklist for fuel pumps, hydraulics, probe heat, flaps, parking brake. Start levers are off, weather radar, and so the airplane is shut down. And so that worked as well. I hope that this works out for you. Again, as I always like to say, as an amateur airline pilot and a real-world private pilot, I'm not saying this is the absolute right way to do it. It's just what's working for me. As I also mentioned, I'm new here on YouTube, so I'm still to the point where I read all questions and comments, and I'm grateful for everyone, including the ones that say, oh, no, you're supposed to do it the other way. That's how we all learn about these sorts of things. I hope you'll join us for the live spy flights over on Twitch. Right now, they are Tuesday through Sunday at 1900 Zulu. They're all group flights, and you're welcome to fly along. As I also mentioned, I am not monetized here on YouTube, so if you like what you see and want to help me out, I can really use the help. And you can come over and subscribe on Twitch, or now there's also the you can do something over on Ko-fi. I just got that set up too. Thank you so much for flying with me. I hope that you're staying healthy and safe in these absolutely crazy times. And I'm going to look forward to seeing you soon in the friendly simulator skies here on YouTube, and even sooner on Twitch. Happy landings.